When we think of America's early days and Wild West, vivid images of settlers, cowboys, and native tribes often come to mind. Among those tribes, the Comanche stand out as perhaps the most feared and formidable. They were renowned for their fierce defense of their lands against anyone who dared to intrude, whether native or settler. The Comanche's reputation was formidable, and their prowess with horses made them a dominant force in North America. Yet, in 1875, the unthinkable happened. Originally, the Comanche were part of the Shoshone tribe of Wyoming. In the 16th century, they migrated to the plains of Colorado, following the massive herds of bison that roamed the region. This group called themselves Numunu, meaning the people. The name Comanche first appeared in 1706 when Spanish officials adapted the Ute word Comanche, meaning enemy, to fit Spanish pronunciation. Over time, the Numunu embraced the name Comanche, which would become synonymous with their identity. The name Comanche today evokes images of fearsome warriors on horseback. But before they achieved this fearsome reputation, they lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers on foot. They built temporary settlements and moved seasonally with their prey. Without horses, they relied on dogs to transport their possessions. At the time, the Comanche were not known for their military prowess. However, the arrival of wild horses in North America, introduced by the Spanish, set the stage for a dramatic transformation. Within just a few decades of the horse's introduction to the Great Plains, the Comanche mastered the art of horsemanship. This newfound skill was a game changer, transforming them from passive hunter-gatherers into a dominant warrior society. Their deep understanding of horses enabled them to develop unparalleled expertise in riding and combat. This mastery made them unique among the Plains tribes. Other tribes would take much longer to reach the Comanche's level of proficiency. With their newfound power, the Comanche evolved into a highly organized, warlike society. From a young age, children were trained to ride, hunt, and fight. Their success as warriors was not only due to their skill, but also to the brutality of their tactics. During raids, they were ruthless, killing all men, executing older children, and subjecting captives to unimaginable torture. Young children were often sold into slavery, while women were typically assaulted and then killed. Prisoners of war faced horrific ends, reflecting the Comanche's ruthless approach to conflict. Yet, the Comanche were not without nuance. While some captives suffered brutal fates, others were often integrated into Comanche society. Those who displayed bravery might be spared, and young children were often adopted into the tribe, highlighting a more complex aspect of their culture. The Comanche's relationship with European settlers was multifaceted. In Texas, settlers feared the Comanche for their raids, while in New Mexico, they were seen as valuable trading partners. The Comanche engaged in a dynamic trade with settlers, exchanging horses, buffalo hides, and captives for European goods like weapons, metal tools, and other essentials. This trade was crucial for the Comanche, enhancing their mobility and power, while settlers relied on it for survival and protection. Despite occasional conflicts, this trade relationship was a cornerstone of the frontier economy, demonstrating the intricate interactions between indigenous peoples and European settlers. Before their conflicts with the Spanish and American settlers, the Comanche waged wars against neighboring Plains tribes, such as the Pawnee and Blackfoot. They displaced these tribes from their traditional territories, but the Apache would suffer the most. Despite several attempts to resist, the Apache were repeatedly defeated by the Comanche, who nearly eradicated them. The Apache even sought Spanish protection, but by the time the Comanche had consolidated their control, they had decimated the Apache. By the year 1750, the Comanche had established dominance over the Great Plains. Their western bands controlled areas in New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, and the Texas Panhandle, while the eastern bands held territories in Oklahoma and central Texas. At their peak, the Comanche Empire, known today as the Comancheria, spanned approximately 200,000 square miles. The Comanche wielded significant influence, with vassals and allies including the Ute, Wichita, Kiowa, Kiowa Apache, and later the Southern Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes. The Comanche maintained their dominance through strategic adaptation and learning from the cultures they encountered. For example, they adopted the practice of creating large, temporary winter villages, a technique they likely learned from other tribes, which contributed to their sustained control over the region. For over a century, from 1706 to 1875, the Comanche Wars shaped the history of Mexico and the USA. Throughout the 1700s, the Comanche engaged in relentless raids on Spanish settlements in New Mexico and Texas, targeting missions, presidios, and ranches. These raids were part of a broader strategy to assert control and acquire resources. Recognizing the Comanche's formidable strength, Spanish authorities attempted to negotiate peace treaties. Several treaties were signed, but these were often short-lived due to mutual distrust and conflicting interests. Despite these challenges, in 1786, Spanish governor Juan Bautista de Anza succeeded in negotiating a peace treaty with the Comanche. This treaty resulted in a reduction in hostilities and included trade agreements and promises of mutual aid against common enemies, such as the Apache. This diplomatic achievement stabilized relations for a time. In 1821, Mexico gained independence from Spain, altering the political landscape of North America. For the newly established Mexican government, controlling the northern frontier and defending it from Comanche raids proved to be a major challenge. Mexican settlements, ranches, missions, and towns were frequent targets, further complicated by the influx of Anglo-American settlers into Texas. In 1836, Texas declared its independence and established the Republic of Texas, marking a significant shift in the Comanche Wars. The new Texan government sought to expand its territory, intensifying conflicts with the Comanche. The Texas Rangers, a paramilitary force, were often deployed to protect settlers and launch punitive expeditions against the Comanche. One of the most infamous incidents during this period was the Council House Fight of 1840. Texan officials invited Comanche leaders to San Antonio for peace talks, but the meeting turned violent when Texans demanded the return of all captives. The resulting skirmish led to the deaths of many Comanche leaders and escalated hostilities, prompting widespread Comanche retaliation against Texan settlements. The Comanche continued their raids, resisting Texan efforts to subdue them. However, the increasing presence of settlers and the depletion of buffalo herds began to strain their way of life. The buffalo, a central element of the Comanche economy and culture, faced near extinction due to widespread hunting policies aimed at undermining the Comanche's source of food. In 1845, the United States annexed Texas, leading to the Mexican-American War. This conflict further destabilized the region and intensified the Comanche Wars. During the war, the U.S. military focused on defeating Mexico, which allowed the Comanche to continue their raids relatively unchallenged. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, which ended the Mexican-American War, ceded vast territories to the United States, including much of the Comanche's traditional lands. This marked the beginning of a new phase of conflict, as the U.S. government sought to assert control over these territories and open them to settlement. Following the Mexican-American War, the U.S. government shifted its focus to the Comanche and other Plains tribes. The discovery of gold in California and the expansion of the frontier territory brought an influx of settlers, railroads, and military outposts into the Comanche's land. This expansion threatened the Comanche's way of life and led to a new series of brutal conflicts known as the Indian Wars. The U.S. military adopted a strategy of total war against the Comanche, targeting their villages, food supplies, and buffalo herds. The Red River War was a crucial conflict during this period, in which the U.S. Army launched a series of campaigns to forcibly remove the Comanche and other Plains tribes from their lands. As the 19th century progressed, the once mighty Comanche Empire began to crumble. Disease had ravaged their population, and the Comanche, like many other indigenous peoples, had no immunity to European diseases. By the mid-19th century, outbreaks of smallpox and cholera had decimated the Comanche population. By the 1870s, only a few thousand Comanche remained. This population decline, combined with the near extermination of the buffalo, a deliberate policy by the U.S. government to undermine Comanche subsistence, spelled the end of their reign. Between 1868 and 1881, 31 million buffalo were slaughtered, further destabilizing the Comanche way of life. By the year 1874, the Comanche faced the collapse of their society. With their population reduced by disease and starvation, the Comanche could not withstand the combined pressure of the United States Army and the influx of new settlers. By the year 1875, the last Comanche warriors surrendered and were relocated to a reservation in present-day Oklahoma, where they would face harsh conditions and the erosion of their traditional lifestyle. Just a little earlier, when the Comanche were at the height of their power, surrendering and relocating to a small reservation would have seemed inconceivable. Yet now, it was their reality. Despite their formidable resistance, the combined effects of military campaigns, settler encroachment, and the destruction of their economic base led to their eventual defeat. The Comanche Wars served as a stark reminder of the brutal realities of westward expansion and its profound impact on the indigenous peoples of North America. Today, the Comanche Nation consists of around 17,000 members, with the majority residing in Texas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. Approximately 7,000 members live near Lawton, Oklahoma, where the current Comanche government is headquartered. Although the Comanche were eventually subdued, their legacy as fierce warriors and defenders of their lands endures. Their story is a powerful reminder of the complex interplay of cultures and the profound impact of historical events on indigenous peoples. I hope you found the video enjoyable and interesting, and if you did, please like and subscribe to Splash Travels.